Are you ready to pass your US naturalization interview? The journey to becoming a US citizen can be challenging, but fear not. Understanding English is a crucial part of the process, particularly during the naturalization interview. Today, we'll be your guide, helping you navigate through the intricate labyrinth of English language used in the interview, focusing on the most important words and phrases you'll need to understand. So buckle up and stay tuned as we delve into the most important words and phrases you'll need to understand. First, we'll tackle questions 1 through 5 of Part 12, Additional Information About You. Now, imagine the question being asked. Have you ever claimed to be a US citizen? Essentially, it's asking if you've ever stated, affirmed, or suggested that you are a US citizen. The term claimed here refers to asserting something as a fact, often without providing evidence or proof at the time. Another question you might come across is, have you ever registered to vote in any federal, state, or local election in the United States? Registered to vote is a term that means you've signed up to participate in the democratic process of choosing leaders. It involves filling out some paperwork to ensure you're on the list of eligible voters. Let's move on to a more complex question. Have you ever been declared legally incompetent or been confined to a mental institution? This question has 2 parts. Declared legally incompetent refers to a situation where a court or a doctor has determined that you're unable to make important decisions for yourself. This could be due to various reasons, including mental health conditions or cognitive impairments. The second part of the question, confined to a mental institution, refers to a situation where you've been required to stay in a hospital or other facility for people with mental health issues. This could be voluntary or involuntary, but in either case, it's a significant event that the naturalization process needs to take into account. It's important to note that these questions are not designed to trick or trap you. Instead, they're meant to gather information that's needed to make a fair and accurate decision on your application for citizenship. So, honesty is always the best policy. With these terms clarified, you're better equipped to understand the first part of the interview. Remember, understanding these questions and their underlying terms is a significant step towards acing your naturalization interview. Moving on to questions 6 through 9 of the same part. Let's unravel the meaning of some key terms that you might come across in these questions. When you are asked if you owe any overdue federal, state, or local taxes, it means that you have taxes that were due but have not been paid. Overdue here refers to something that you are required to pay but haven't done so yet. So, if you have any taxes that you were supposed to pay but didn't, whether they're federal, state, or local, those would be your overdue taxes. The next term we'll look at is file a tax return. Filing a tax return is essentially sending a tax form to the government. This is a process that you go through every year where you report your income, expenses, and other financial information to the government. So, if you're asked if you've ever not filed a federal, state, or local tax return, it's simply asking if there were any years where you did not send this tax form to the government. When it comes to the term non-US resident, it is used to describe someone who doesn't live in the United States. So, if you've ever called yourself a non-US resident on a federal, state, or local tax return, it means that you've declared on your tax form that you do not live in the United States. Lastly, we'll cover the term terrorist organization. A terrorist organization is a group that uses violence to hurt people or the government. These organizations often operate outside of the law and use fear and violence as tactics to achieve their goals. So if you're asked if you've ever been a member of or in any way associated with a terrorist organization, it's asking if you've ever been part of such a group. These terms are crucial for understanding your obligations and legal status. It's important to be aware of them and understand what they mean as you move through the naturalization process. Next, we tackle questions about persecution and violence. These questions may seem daunting, but understanding the key terms can make them more approachable. Let's start with persecute. To persecute someone means to cause them harm or distress, typically because of their race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. It's a serious action, often linked with systematic oppression and hate. It's important to understand this term, as it directly relates to the values of equality and respect for all, which are fundamental to the United States. Next on our list is genocide. This is a term that originated after World War II to describe the deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. It's a horrifying act, one that goes against every principle of human rights. Understanding the weight of this term is crucial, as it underlines the severity of the actions it describes. The term kill might seem straightforward, but in this context, it refers to causing someone to die, usually intentionally. This term is associated with the gravest of crimes and is used in these questions to identify any involvement in such acts. Finally, involved. This term is broad and can mean many things. In this context, it refers to having a part or being associated with an activity or event. It could mean that you were directly participating, supporting, or even just present during the event in question. It's important to be clear about what involved means, as it can cover a wide range of actions. Just remember, involvement isn't just about direct action, it's also about association. Understanding these terms is critical for answering these serious questions accurately and honestly. Remember, these questions are not just about your past, they are about understanding your respect for the principles that form the bedrock of the United States. Principles like respect for human rights, equality, and the value of life. Now, let's look at questions concerning detention and labor. The U.S. naturalization process includes some inquiries that may seem complex, but understanding the terms used can help you answer accurately and confidently. The term detention facility may come up. This is a place where people are compelled to stay, often due to legal or political reasons. It's not a place one goes by choice, but rather a place where individuals are held, either short-term or long-term, often to ensure they attend further legal proceedings or serve out a punishment. Another term you might encounter is labor camp. It's essential to understand that a labor camp is a place where people are forced to work, often under harsh conditions. Historically, labor camps have been associated with oppressive regimes and human rights abuses, so any association with them is viewed seriously during the naturalization process. The phrase prison or jail is probably more familiar. A prison or jail is a place where law enforcement agencies keep people who have been arrested or convicted of crimes. It's a place of confinement, used to enforce legal penalties upon those found guilty in a court of law. Understanding these terms is crucial when filling out your naturalization application and preparing for your interview. They can come up in questions about your past activities and affiliations, and your answers can significantly impact the outcome of your application. Remember, honesty is the best policy. If you have any affiliations or past activities related to these terms, it's best to disclose them up front. The immigration officers appreciate honesty and full disclosure, even if the truth is uncomfortable. These terms help you understand questions about your past activities and affiliations. As we continue, we'll explore more terms and concepts to help you ace your naturalization interview. Stay tuned, and remember, you're not alone in this journey. Let's move on to questions about weapons and minors. In the context of the naturalization interview, it's crucial to understand certain terms that might come up. Weapon, for instance, is a broad term that could refer to any object used to inflict harm or damage. It's not limited to guns or knives, but could also include explosives, chemicals, or even vehicles used with harmful intent. It's important to note that an organization can be as small as a local community group, or as large as an international corporation or governmental body. The term combat is another one that might come up. Combat refers to active engagement in a conflict or battle. This could be on a physical battlefield in a war, or in a metaphorical sense, such as a legal battle in a courtroom. Now let's discuss a rather sensitive topic: using a person under 15 years of age. This phrase refers to the act of involving minors, specifically those under the age of 15, in activities related to conflict or combat. This could mean using them as soldiers, messengers, spies, or in any other capacity that supports or contributes to a conflict. It's essential to understand these terms because they might come up in questions about your past. For instance, the interviewer might ask if you've ever been part of an organization that used weapons, or if you've ever involved a person under 15 in combat. Remember, honesty is the best policy during your interview. If you're unsure about a question, don't hesitate to ask for clarification. The interviewer is there to help you, and it's better to understand the question correctly than to answer inaccurately. With these terms, you can accurately respond to questions about conflict and the involvement of minors. Finally, we'll tackle questions about crime and law enforcement. Now, this might sound a bit intense, but don't worry, we're here to break it down for you. First off, let's start with the term crime. A crime is essentially any action that breaks the law. This could range from something as serious as robbery or assault to minor offenses like jaywalking or littering. But the common thread here is that all these actions are considered illegal by the law. Moving on, we have the term offense. Now, an offense is a type of crime, but it's generally less serious. Think of things like parking violations or minor traffic infractions. They're still against the law, but they're not quite as grave as the crimes we mentioned earlier. Next up is arrested. When you're arrested, you're essentially caught by the police for suspicion of committing a crime. This usually involves being taken into custody, where you might be questioned or detained until a court can decide on your case. Finally, we have the term cited. Now, being cited doesn't necessarily mean you're taken into custody like when you're arrested. Instead, when you're cited, you're given a ticket by the police for a minor infraction. This could be for something like speeding or failing to stop at a stop sign. It's a form of legal reprimand, but it doesn't usually involve any sort of detention. To sum up, crime refers to any action that breaks the law. Offense is a less serious crime. Arrested means being caught and potentially detained by the police. And cited refers to being given a ticket for a minor infraction. Understanding these terms is vital for answering questions about your legal history. Remember, it's all about being honest and clear about your past. So, don't shy away from these terms, embrace them, and use them to your advantage. This video has covered key terms for your US naturalization interview. We've journeyed through the labyrinth of language, exploring terms and phrases that you may encounter during your interview. We've examined how these words and phrases relate to your life experiences and how you might need to explain these experiences during your interview. We started by looking at questions about your background, such as whether you've ever claimed to be a US citizen or registered to vote. We clarified what it means to be declared legally incompetent or confined to a mental institution. We then moved on to financial matters, discussing the implications of owing overdue taxes and the importance of filing tax returns. Next, we delved into the more serious questions about potential involvement with violence or persecution. We clarified what it means to be associated with a terrorist organization, involved in genocide, or to persecute someone based on their race, religion, or political beliefs. We also took a closer look at questions about detention facilities, labor camps, and prison or jail. We discussed the importance of disclosing any involvement, whether as a worker, volunteer, or soldier, in such places. We then moved on to understanding what it means to use a weapon against a person or to involve a minor in combat situations. We clarified the difference between a crime and an offense, and what it means to be arrested, cited, or detained by law enforcement. Understanding these terms and being able to answer questions about them confidently and truthfully is crucial for your US naturalization interview. It's not just about knowing the meaning of the words, but also understanding the context in which they are used and how they relate to your personal experiences. Remember, the aim of the interview is not to trip you up, but to ensure that you meet the requirements for becoming a US citizen. Your honesty and transparency are as important as your ability to communicate effectively in English. As you continue preparing for your interview, take the time to review these terms and phrases. Reflect on how they apply to your life experiences and how you might explain these experiences during your interview. Practice speaking about them in English until you feel confident and comfortable. Remember, preparation is key. You're now one step closer to acing your US naturalization interview.